everyone, Charlene here. Today I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks for using the brand new Petal Shaper tool set from Altenew. And I'm going to use that with the new Narcissus layering die set. This is a gorgeous die set with the keyhole system. Of course, Altenew always has this really beautiful packaging. And I'm going to show you how to use this tool system to create this amazing card. So let's get started. I'm going to start by cutting out all of the petals using a piece of white cardstock. Now this die cuts out all the petals at once and it fits perfectly onto an A2 sized piece of cardstock. So I'm running this through here on my die cutting machine, and then once I've cut everything out, you'll notice here that there are different shapes in the centers of the petals. There's a keyhole, a triangle, an arrow, a wee T is what it's called, and then a snowman. So when I take these off and put them in my dish to prep everything, I'm just going to make sure that I'm putting the same ones together, because then I will easily know that those ones are going together to create a single flower. I do want to note there is this small piece as well. It's going to be a separate bud, and then these two tiny little pieces here, they don't have a shape icon on them, but they're going to go with the arrow flower. Next, we're going to break open this awesome Petal Shaper tool set. You'll see it comes here with this nice molding pad, and then there are 3 different tools here. These are all double-sided. So you have 2mm, 6mm, 3mm, 8mm, another 8mm, and a 12mm tool. Those are the size of the balls on the ends of the tool. So since we're working with fairly small petals, I'm going to use the smaller of these. I'll start here with the flower that has the snowman icon on it, and that helps you determine exactly how to line these up when you glue them together. Now, I mentioned this is the Narcissus layering die set. There are 2 different kinds of Narcissus. There is the daffodil and the jonquil. I just learned that. Now, daffodils do have petals that curve up, so they kind of cup up towards you. So I'm going to take the 6mm here, and I'm going to press down here and make a small circle, just moving my way around in a circle, and that's going to give us lift from the center. Then I'm going to take that same size and I'm going to work it in a circle motion again in the base here of the petal. So that will make it so that the petal curves up towards us. So you can see here our petals are kind of cupped now. It's raised up from the center, and you can do that in either order. It doesn't really matter. You can do your petals first and then the center, or vice versa. It's a pretty quick process. Coming in here, did the petals and then did the center to bring it up farther. Now I can adhere the number 2 petal on top of the number 1 petal. And that works just by lining up that little snowman icon and pressing down. Super easy. So here's our nice little flower with all of that beautiful dimension. Earlier I said there's this little wee T is what they're calling it. There's actually also a larger T. It's a little hard to see on camera, but in real life you can tell the difference between them. So there are actually 2 different flowers here with that T shape. Something you can do to make your fibers more malleable is to mist your cardstock with a water sprayer. You want to use a fine mist, just spritz it. I did that off camera, and then I can set it down. I'll do the same thing for the next petal, and that just helps the fibers. It really breaks them down a little bit, and then you can come in with the Petal Shaper and work its magic in order to give it the beautiful shape that you're looking for. Now, I found that I did not need to mist my paper overall, but depending on the type of paper you're using, it might make it easier. So play around if you get this tool set and see what works best for you. Adding some glue here to the back of the second layer and then just popping it over the top so that those 2 T's line up. I love the keyhole system from Altenew, so easy. So I finished here with the regular T. I wanted to show you that once you're done, you could also run your tool across the center if you want your flowers to be even more cupped. So now I'll just go ahead and finish layering all of the different flowers here. For the rest of these flowers, there are several that have smaller petals. For those, I'm going to switch over to the smaller 3mm ball, and I'm doing the same thing with the circles. I'm just working the circles up along the petal. That's going to curve these smaller petals so that they are cupped as well. Then for the somewhat larger, wider petals, I'll switch back to the 8mm. Daffodils, like I said, have cupped petals that face up, but there are a lot of flowers that the petals will cup away from you so that they'll face down. So if you have a set where you need to do the petals so that they face the other way, it's really easy. All you need to do is flip over your die cut before you start shaping your petal. I am going to forego the 2 little accent pieces that go on the arrow flower. So I'll go ahead and set all of my flowers aside now that they're put together, and I'm going to grab the dies that create the detail pieces. If you look at the packaging here on the front, there's this beautiful example floral. This is kind of your standard daffodil with its yellow petals, and then in the center it is orange, and there are 3 different dies that create the center of the florals. There's this inset piece here, which they've done in a light orange, the outer piece, which is done here in a reddish orange, and then the stamen center piece, which is done in a true orange. There's lots of different colors of daffodils out there. I've decided I want to have a daffodil with white petals with a yellow center with orange tips. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and cut all 3 of the dies that create this center section out of yellow cardstock. I have here a kind of medium yellow toned cardstock, so I'll go ahead and cut all of these out. And this die right here, it cuts out all of those same little icon pieces, just like on the petals. And then it cuts a clean version that's a second layer, so that way you won't see that little cut out once you're all done. That'll make a little more sense as we go along. So first you have to figure out which pieces go together. I've figured that all out. They match, so it doesn't take very long to do. You can see they match up easily here. Then I'm going to take a look at the packaging. So starting here with the wee T, for instance, we know we need these 2 little pieces, and then we need a centerpiece that looks like this. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but I was able to pick out the pieces that go together. Once I have them all picked out, I'm going to bring them up here and put them together on my sticky mat, and then I can just go through and do that for all of the remaining centers. I've got everything set up, and I'm bringing in some beautiful orange cream ink, and I'm going to use a small micro blending brush, a size 7, and I'll grab a little bit of ink and then work it into my bristles, and I'm going to bring it along the edges of the solid pieces, the pieces that don't have a little die cut icon in them. So I start off the edge of the piece and swirl it up onto the piece, and I'm going to go through and do that for each of them, only on the edge. And this is the portion that would be sticking up, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it will make sense as you see the flower come together. I find it helpful to look at the die cut and see where the embossed details are. That kind of helps guide me to see what edge I need to add the color to. I did go ahead and complete one of my flowers off camera because I wanted to make sure of what I was doing before I showed you guys. Now, normally what you would do with these awesome layering die sets like this is you would take a piece here and line it up with that icon that's on the other piece and glue it down. And then you take your next piece and glue it down on top of that, and so on and so forth. But because I want my centers to be lifted up, I'm doing things a little different on this card. In this instance, I'm going to start by adding glue here to the top of, let's work with the arrow piece. And so I'll add glue to the top of the arrow piece, and then I can grab the matching shape that I've added the orange color to and just layer it directly over the top. It's going to fit perfectly. Now, the downside to doing it this way is I am going to lose some ability to see exactly where to layer this piece. But because I'm paying attention, I know that this arrow here is going to come in like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece that I glued together and set it down. I'm going to grab the larger of the petal shapers. I'm going to use the 8mm here, I think this is, and bring it in circles on the center of the piece. That's going to curve it out and give it this really nice, lovely dimension that we love. Then I can take a foam square and add that to the center of our petal piece. I'm going to put it up just a little bit because I'm going to try and angle my top piece. Then I can remove the release tape, then bring in this piece that we just shaped and angle it on the edge of that foam square. Then I'll take a look back here at my packaging, and that's going to show me where the next two pieces need to be. So I'm looking at my little pieces and I can tell how they need to stick up. I'll grab a little bit of the orange cream ink here and bring it along the edge of the topmost piece. That's going to give us that same beautiful orange coloring mixed with the yellow, but it's going to look like it's all the way along the edges of the center of the daffodil. So I'll add some glue here to the back of that piece that I just added some ink to and layer it over the top of the stamen piece. I'll add a little glue here to the bottom and then pop my detail piece right over the bottom portion of the center on the flower. So you can see we have two really beautiful 3D flowers here. I'll go ahead and finish off all the rest of these flowers. I've gone through and finished creating all of those flowers. Now I'm going to put together the base section of the floral arrangement. So I will grab the remaining dies that I haven't cut out yet. In the example, they used a couple of different shades of green to cut this out, but I'm actually going to just cut everything out of the same green since we already have so much loveliness going on with our flowers. So I'll go ahead and cut these out with my die cutting machine. I've cut everything out. I'm going to layer these two leaf pieces right here. It's pretty easy to tell what needs to get layered. So if you're ever in doubt, just look at the packaging. The packaging is so helpful. I'll add some glue here to the back of this other small leaf piece and cover it over this portion towards the bottom. I'm going to move my flowers and the base piece out of the way, and I'll grab my molding mat again so that I can shape my leaves. For the leaves, I'm going to use the 8mm, and then on the really thin ones, I'll use the 6mm. I want my leaves to come in to cup up as well, just like the petals. So I'm going to take my little ball here along the center of the leaf in order to give it some dimension so that way it is cupping up. And I'll just do that as well on these other pieces, just running it along. You can do tiny circles as well. I think they both work. When I get to the end, I'm going to switch to the smaller 6mm. Okay, I've got all of those ready to go. I've got a piece of blue cardstock here for my background, and I'm actually going to bring in some bronze pigment ink. Now, Altenew has these beautiful pigment metallic inks. There's platinum, silver, rose gold, and bronze. And I feel like adding a bit of shimmery bronze to the back of this looks so pretty. Now, I know it sounds strange, but trust me, it works in the end. So I'll just pick up some ink here and work it into the bristles of my brush, and then I always start on the diagonal. That's just how I work. And I'll bring up the ink onto my cardstock, always starting off of the cardstock on the glass mat and working my way onto the cardstock. Now I'm going to come all the way around, softly fading this ink in towards the center. Just keep working the ink into the cardstock until you have a really nice soft fade going on. You've got to kind of trust the process on this. At first it doesn't look great, especially when the ink is still wet, but you can see it creates this really beautiful halo effect. Now we can start putting together our card. You can see it on this base piece. It has those same little icon cutouts, the triangle, snowman, arrow, all that good stuff. So I'm going to come in and grab all of my flowers, and I can still see what they are just by looking at the back of the flower. Like this is the little snowman. So I'm just going to get a sense of how everything's going to look by laying it all out. I've laid everything out. I do want to add some dimension to our little bulb piece that's going to go on the last one. So I'm flipping it over. I took the die cut and flipped it over because I want it to curve the opposite way of what all of our petals are doing. So making that same little circle, working my way out on the cardstock, and you can see it creates that nice curve going in the opposite direction. So I pop that up there, and you can see there is a little bit of green showing, and I'll just trim that off with some scissors. I am going to take everything off here because I realized I didn't want to make a mess while I was gluing everything together. So now I can go in and just add glue around each of the different spots that have the little icon on there, and then find the matching flower and pop it right over the top so that it adheres to it. So now we have our beautiful shaped floral piece that's going to go on our card. But before I start adhering things down to the card base, I'm going to go ahead and set everything aside and get my sentiment ready. For my sentiment, I'm going to use the One Go sentiment strips number 3. I have some of the other ones in this as well, and I love these One Go strips. They are so cool. So I've got my Better Press system out here, and I'm going to take the press plate and just set it in the center, and then I will ink up the press plate really well here with some black pigment ink. Once my plate is nice and inked up, I've got my piece of cardstock here taped to the top plate. I'll just set this over the top, and then I can run the whole thing through my die cutting machine. Ran that through, I'll pull this off, and you can see we have those beautiful sentiments. The One Go solid sentiment strips die works with all of the different One Go plates, and you just line it up so that you can see all of the text nice and neat coming through there. I lined that all up, so I'll tape it down, and then I can run this entire thing through my die cutting machine. Okay, now I can just pop out all of these gorgeous sentiment strips that I created. I've chosen the Thanks a Million sentiment. I'll set everything else aside. To make sure the edges are nice and black, I am coming in here with a black marker and just running it around the edges. I'm going to start here by gluing the frontmost leaf piece onto the flower arrangement. So you could pop that up too with foam tape if you wanted to, but I'm just going to glue it on there, and then I'm going to decide which leaves I want to use. So I'll lay them out to get a sense before I start tucking them in. I'm going to skip this leaf here. I kind of have a general idea now of where I want everything to go, so I will add glue to the leaves one at a time and then tuck them back in so that they attach to the back of the flower arrangement. All right, I've got all of those adhered on, so now I can just flip the piece over and clip off any little tails that might show. Now I can add some glue to all of the areas that I want adhered down to the card. I usually start off with just a couple of areas. I don't like to go crazy. I could always add more glue, but it's harder to take it away. So I'll flip this over and carefully lay it over the top. Sorry about my head on this. And then I can adhere it in place. If there are specific places you want to add more glue, you just easily lift that up, add some glue, or you can come in and add foam squares if you want even more dimension. I just go around tweaking things and shifting things until I'm happy. There's no rhyme or reason. Now I can go ahead and trim off this end little tail that's coming off. I think this looks really nice, but I'm going to bring in my splat box here and grab some black and white acrylic paint. I will add some of that paint onto my paintbrush. Then I can just come along and tap across the front of the card to my heart's content so I get a little bit of white splatter on there. Finished with my white, so I will grab some black acrylic paint here, just working it into my brush, then coming along and tapping to create some black splatter on the card as well. This just adds a little bit of texture. It brings everything together. So once I'm happy with the amount, I'll set it aside to dry. You can see I almost dropped it on the floor, but that's okay. It turned out okay. So I've added some foam squares to the back of my sentiment. I'm going to put it slightly right of the center. Then I can come in here and add some glue to the back of the finished panel and adhere it to an A2 sized card base. So here is our finished card. You can see that beautiful, beautiful glow from the pigment ink when we turn it in the light. And we have all that lovely texture, that dimension. So easy to do with the petal shaping dies. I hope that you all picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.